It's not a lag. It's here. Chapter 1. The stream. Begins. Ethan hit the Go Live button on his streaming software, leaned back in his chair, and grinned at the camera. Hey, Stream Squad. Welcome back to the channel. Tonight's gonna be epic. 3 hours of non-stop gaming, some spooky indie titles, and maybe a few jump scares to keep us on our toes. You ready? His voice was bright, the kind of energy that had earned him a loyal following of a few thousand subscribers. The neon lights behind him pulsed blue and purple, casting a glow across his setup. A sleek desk, dual monitors, and a microphone that gleamed under the ring light. The chat lit up instantly. Yo, Ethan, let's go. Spooky vibes tonight? I'm in! Don't scream too loud, LOL. He chuckled, adjusting his headset. All right, I see you guys are hyped. Let's dive into this new game. Echoes of the Void. Supposed to be creepy but not too heavy. Perfect for a Thursday night, right? He clicked a few buttons, and the game loaded on his main screen, mirrored to the stream. The intro flickered, to life. A dark forest, eerie whispers, and a pixelated figure running from something unseen. Ethan leaned closer, narrating for his audience. Oh, this is already giving me chills. What do you think? Should I turn the lights down for extra? Vibes? The chat exploded with yes, and do it. He grinned, reached over, and dimmed the room's lights, leaving just the glow of his setup. There we go. Full immersion mode activated. Let's see how long I last before I chicken out. The game progressed smoothly for the first 20 minutes. Ethan navigated the forest, jumped at a sudden owl screech, and laughed at himself. Okay, that got me. You guys saw that, right? I'm not scared, I swear. Just startled. The chat teased him relentlessly, emojis flooding the screen. Then it happened. A tiny glitch. The game froze for half a second, the audio stuttering before snapping back. Ethan frowned. Whoa, what was that? Did you see that lag? My internet's usually rock solid. He glanced at his second monitor, checking the stream stats. Connection's fine. Weird. The chat slowed for a moment. Then a single message popped up. Ethan, there's something behind you. He blinked, then laughed. Nice try, Stream Squad. You're not gonna prank me that easy? What? Is it a ghost? A creeper from Minecraft sneaking? Up? He kept playing, brushing it off. But more messages followed. No, seriously, look behind you. It's a shadow. I saw it move. Dude, turn around. Ethan's smile faltered. He paused the game and swiveled his head slightly, glancing over his shoulder. Nothing but his room. Empty, quiet, lit only by the faint glow of his setup. You guys are messing with me, right? There's nothing here. Chat's just trying to spook me because it's spooky game night. He forced a grin, turning back to the camera. Okay, I'll bite. Did you notice the shadow earlier? Or are you all just trolling me? Type shadow if you saw it. Troll if you're messing with me. The chat erupted. Shadow! 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 Ethan's grin faded completely. Wait, you're all saying shadow? For real? He scratched the back of his neck, suddenly aware of how cold the room felt. Okay, that's creepy. But come on, it's just my chair or something, right? Let's keep going. He unpaused the game, but his eyes flicked to the corner of the stream window, where his webcam feed showed his own face, and the space behind him. Was that a shape? No, just the shadow of his mic stand. Had to be. Still, his heart beat a little faster. You guys are getting in my head, he muttered, half to himself, half to the audience. Let's focus on the game. No more lag, no more shadows, just good vibes. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. Chapter 2. The glitches. Ethan tried to shake, off the unease creeping up his spine. The game's dark forest stretched across the screen, the character's footsteps crunching through virtual leaves. Okay, Stream Squad, we're back in action. Let's find that creepy cabin the tutorial mentioned. No more distractions. Chat, you gotta stop with the shadow stuff, alright? You're freaking me out. He forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow, even to him. The chat wasn't letting up. Ethan, it's still there. The shadow moved closer. Check your webcam feed, dude. He rolled his eyes, leaning into the playful skepticism his viewers loved. All right, fine. You want me to check? I'll check. But when there's nothing there, you owe me some likes on this stream. Deal? He minimized the game for a second, pulling up the full webcam feed on his second monitor. There he was, headset on, neon lights glowing, and behind him, just his room. Empty. See? Nothing. No ghosts, no shadows, no lag monsters. You guys are too good at this prank game. But as he clicked back to the game, the stream stuttered again. The screen flickered, the audio warping into a low, garbled hum before snapping back to normal. Ethan froze. Okay, that's twice now. What's going on? My rig's brand new. There's no way it's crashing like this. He opened his streaming software's diagnostics. Ping's fine, upload speed's fine. Maybe it's the game? Indie titles can be buggy sometimes. He kept playing, but the glitches didn't stop. Every few minutes the screen would freeze, the sound would distort, and once, the game's character spun wildly in a circle before resetting. This is getting ridiculous, Ethan muttered, running a hand through his hair. Chat, is it lagging for you too, or is it just me? The responses came fast. It's lagging for us. But it's not just lag. Look behind you. The shadow's taller now. Ethan's stomach dropped. Taller? What do you mean taller? He didn't want to look. He told himself it was silly that his viewers were just playing along with the spooky theme. But the chat was relentless, and their tone had shifted. No more laughing emojis, just urgent messages piling up. Okay. I'll humor you guys again. He turned slowly, his chair creaking under him. The room was still empty. No shadow, no figure, nothing. He exhaled, turning back with a shaky grin. See? You're all imagining things. Maybe it's the game messing with your heads too. Let's... The screen glitched again, harder this time. The game froze entirely, the forest replaced by a black void with static buzzing through his speakers. Ethan yelped, yanking off his headset. Whoa. Okay, that was loud. What the heck? He tapped his keyboard, trying to exit the game, but it wouldn't budge. The static grew louder, a faint whisper threading through it. Almost like a voice, but too distorted to make out. Chat, are you hearing this? Tell me I'm not going crazy. He glanced at the second monitor, where the chat was moving so fast he could barely read it. We hear it. It said something. Ethan, the shadow's right behind you. His breath caught. He whipped around again, faster this time, heart pounding. Nothing. Just his room. But when he turned back, the webcam feed on his screen showed something different. Behind his own wide-eyed reflection stood a faint, blurry shape. Tall, dark, and impossibly still. No way, he whispered, voice trembling. That's not real. It's a glitch. It's gotta be a glitch. He reached for his mouse too, closed the feed, but his hand was shaking too hard to click properly. The static from the speakers swelled, and the chat went wild. It's closer! Ethan, run! Did you notice the shadow earlier? It's been there the whole time! He stared at the feed, frozen, as the shape seemed to sharpen, just for a moment, before the screen flickered back to the game. The forest was back, the static gone, but Ethan wasn't smiling anymore. Okay, Stream Squad, he said, voice barely steady. This is getting weird. Let's take a quick break. I'll be right back. He hit the pause stream button, but deep down, he wasn't sure he wanted to come back at all. Chat Chapter 3. The break. That wasn't Ethan stumbled away from his desk, his legs wobbly as he crossed the room to flip on the overhead lights. The harsh white glow flooded the space, chasing away the neon-tinted shadows. He let out a shaky laugh, rubbing his face with both hands. Get it together, man. It's just a game. Just a glitch. Chat's just hyping it up. They're good at that. He grabbed a water bottle from his mini fridge, taking a long gulp as he paced. The stream was on pause, the Be Right Back screen up for his viewers, but his mind wouldn't settle. That shape in the webcam feed, it wasn't his chair or his mic stand. It couldn't be. It had been too tall, too human-like. No, he muttered to himself. It's a trick of the light. Or maybe someone hacked the stream, added some creepy overlay to mess with me. Yeah, that's it. He sat back down, still avoiding the camera, and pulled up his phone to check X. Maybe someone had posted about pranking streamers with fake ghost effects. He typed a quick search. Stream glitch shadow prank. Nothing useful, just some old posts about gaming bugs and a few conspiracy threads. He sighed, setting the phone down. Okay, Ethan, you're a pro. You've got a stream to finish. Don't let this ruin your night. He reached for the mouse to unpause the stream, but his hand froze mid-air. The monitors, they were still on, showing the paused game and the Be Right Back screen. But the webcam feed, minimized in the corner, was moving. His chair was empty, the room lit bright, yet the feed showed him sitting there, staring at the screen. What the... He blinked hard, leaning closer. The Ethan in the feed didn't move. He just sat there, motionless, eyes locked on something, off-screen. Then, slowly, the figure in the feed turned its head, toward the real Ethan. He jolted back, knocking over his water bottle. It hit the floor with a loud thud, snapping him out of his panic. No, that's impossible. He grabbed the mouse and closed the streaming software entirely, shutting down the feed. The screen went black, and for a moment, the room was silent. Okay, he said aloud, voice echoing in the quiet. That's enough of that. I'll reboot everything, start fresh. No more creepy games tonight, just some chill Minecraft or something. He bent down to pick up the water bottle, his back to the desk, when he heard it. A faint tap, 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 it was coming from the speakers, still on, even though the software was closed. Ethan straightened slowly, dread pooling in his chest. Hello? He whispered, feeling ridiculous but unable to stop himself. No answer, just the tapping, steady and deliberate, like fingers on glass. He turned to the monitors. They were still, off, but the webcam's tiny green light blinked at him. On. Recording. Streaming? He lunged forward, yanking the camera's USB cord from the computer. The light went out, and the tapping stopped. Breathing hard, he sank into his chair. Okay, it's just tech stuff, wires crossed or something. He glanced at his phone. Again, 5 minutes had passed since he paused the stream. His viewers were probably wondering where he was. He opened the streaming app on his phone to check the chat, and his blood ran cold. The stream wasn't paused. It was live, and the chat was flooded. Ethan, why aren't you moving? The shadows touching your shoulder. Get out of... There! He dropped the phone, spinning to check the room again. Empty, bright, normal. But when he looked back at the phone, the live feed showed him sitting at the desk, head bowed, while a dark, blurry figure loomed over him, its hand resting on his shoulder. The tapping started again, louder this time, and the camera, unplugged on the desk, flickered back to life. Chapter 4. The camera won't die. Ethan stared at the webcam, its green light glowing like a tiny, unblinking eye. He'd unplugged it, yanked the cord right out of the port, yet there it was, powered on, staring back at him. His hands trembled as he grabbed it, turning it over in his grip. No battery, no wireless chip, just a standard USB camera. "This isn't possible," he muttered, his voice cracking. "Tech doesn't work like this." The tapping grew louder, a rhythmic thud now, echoing through the speakers. He dropped the camera onto the desk and stumbled back, eyes darting around the room. The lights were still on, the space still empty, but the phone on the floor showed a different story. He scooped it up, hands slick with sweat, and checked the live stream again. There he was, in the feed, frozen in his chair, the shadowy figure now leaning closer, its blurred outline sharpening into something almost human. The chat was a blur of panic. "Ethan, it's moving!" "Turn off the stream. We can hear it. Run!" "Hear it?" he whispered, glancing at the speakers. The tapping wasn't just noise anymore. It was layered with a low, raspy hiss, like someone breathing too close to a mic. He lunged for the power strip under his desk and flipped the switch, killing the computer, monitors, and speakers in one go. The room plunged into silence, the hum of electronics gone. For a moment he just stood there, chest heaving, clutching his phone. The stream app was still open, and impossibly, it was still live. Battery power, maybe? But the feed shouldn't work without the camera. He tapped the end stream button frantically, but the screen froze, then flickered back to the live view. The Ethan in the feed wasn't moving, but the shadow was. It shifted, tilting its head as if listening. Okay, think," he said aloud, pacing the room. "This is a prank. Someone's hacked my setup, right? Messing with the feed, looping old footage, or something." He grabbed a hoodie from the back of his door, pulling it on as if it could shield him from the creeping dread. "I'll go downstairs, get some air, figure this out. Chat's just playing along, that's all." He opened his bedroom door, stepping into the hallway. The house was quiet, the usual creaks and groans of an old building absent tonight. He flicked on the stairwell light and hurried down, phone still in hand. The stream app refused to close, and every few seconds he glanced at it. Each time, the shadow in the feed grew clearer, its edges less blurry, its form more solid. At the bottom of the stairs, he stopped, catching his breath. "All right, stream squad," he said, holding the phone up like he was vlogging. "If this is live, I'm out of the room now. No more creepy vibes, see? Just me, chilling in the living room. Let's calm down, maybe switch to some Q&A or..." He froze, mid-sentence. The feed on his phone didn't show the living room. It showed his bedroom, his empty chair, and the shadow standing perfectly still in the center of the frame. The chat erupted again. "Ethan, it's not following you." "Wait, where are you then? The tapping's back." He spun around, half expecting to see the shadow behind him. But the living room was empty. Just the couch, the TV, and the faint glow of streetlights through the curtains. Then he heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Not from the phone, not from the speakers upstairs, but from the ceiling, right above where he stood. His mouth went dry. "No way," he breathed, tilting his head up. The ceiling was plain, white, unremarkable, but the tapping continued, slow and deliberate, moving across the room like footsteps pacing his bedroom floor. He backed toward the couch, eyes locked on the ceiling, phone shaking in his hand. "Chat, tell me you're hearing this," he whispered, into the mic, forgetting for a moment that he wasn't at his desk. The responses flooded in. "We hear it. It's walking. Ethan, get out of the house." He swallowed hard, forcing a weak laugh. "Get out? Come on, guys, it's just the pipes or something. Old houses, you know?" But the tapping stopped abruptly, replaced by a new sound, a faint, guttural hum that vibrated through the walls. The phone screen flickered, and when it steadied, the shadow in the feed was gone. The chair was still empty, the room unchanged. But the absence felt worse somehow, like it had moved out of frame, not away. Ethan's voice trembled as he spoke to the camera again. "Okay, Stream Squad. I'm gonna check this out. Stay with me, all right? Let's figure out what's going on." He didn't want to go back upstairs, but the thought of leaving it unanswered was worse. With the phone as his only lifeline to his viewers, he started climbing the stairs, each step heavier than the last. Chapter 5. The Room Feels Wrong. The stairwell felt narrower than usual, the walls pressing in as Ethan climbed. His phone's flashlight beam bounced off the faded paint, casting jittery shadows that made him flinch. "All right, Stream Squad," he said, his voice a forced whisper. "We're heading back up. Probably just the wind or, I don't know, a raccoon on the roof. Nothing crazy, right?" He glanced at the chat, hoping for some reassurance, but the messages weren't helping. "Ethan, don't go back. The hum's louder now. Did you notice the shadows gone from the feed?" "Yeah, I noticed," he muttered, pausing halfway up the stairs. "That's good, right? Means it's over. Whatever glitch or prank this was, it's done." But the hum was louder now, a deep, resonant buzz that seemed to seep from the walls themselves. He tightened his grip on the phone, the stream still inexplicably live, and forced himself to keep moving. When he reached the top, the bedroom door was ajar, just as he'd left it. The overhead light spilled into the hall, steady and bright, but something felt off. The air was thick, heavy, like stepping into a room after a long rain. He held the phone up, angling it toward the doorway. "Okay, chat, here we go. Moment of truth. You ready?" He pushed the door open wider and stepped inside. The room looked normal at first glance. Desk, chair, computer off, neon lights dark. But the webcam sat on the desk, its green light still on, staring at him. "Seriously?" he groaned, crossing the room in 3 quick strides. "I unplugged you." He grabbed it again, this time flipping it upside down and shoving it into a drawer. There. Done. No more creepy camera nonsense. The hum stopped. Silence settled over the room, so complete it made his ears ring. He exhaled, shoulders slumping. "See, Stream Squad? All good now. Just a weird night. Let's..." He stopped. The phone in his hand vibrated, not with notifications, but with a low, pulsing thrum. The screen flickered, and the feed shifted. It wasn't showing what he saw, the room through his eyes, but a view from the desk, as if the camera were still, active. In the feed, he stood by the drawer, frozen mid-sentence. Behind him, the shadow was back, taller, sharper, its edges crisp against the bright light. It wasn't moving, just standing, its head tilted slightly as if watching him. Ethan's breath hitched. He whipped around, expecting to see it, but the room was empty. "Chat, what am I looking at?" he croaked, holding the phone closer. The messages poured in. "It's right there. Ethan, it's staring at you. The hum's back. Listen." He strained his ears. There it was. A faint buzz, growing steadily. Not from the phone this time, but from the walls, the floor, the air itself. The lights flickered, just once, and the temperature dropped, his breath fogging in front of him. "This isn't funny anymore," he said, backing toward the door. "I don't know what's happening, but I'm done. Stream's over. The phone cut him off with a sudden burst of static, the screen flashing white before settling back, on the feed. The shadow in the frame moved, slowly, deliberately, stepping closer to the frozen Ethan on screen. The real Ethan froze too, unable to look away. "No, no, no," he whispered, fumbling for the door handle behind him. Then the camera fell, not in real life, in the feed. The view tilted wildly, crashing to the desk, then the floor, the screen filling with a distorted blur of his room. The chat went silent, no new messages scrolling, just a wall of frozen text, begging him to run. The feed went black, and for a moment, Ethan thought it was finally over. But the hum didn't stop. It grew louder, vibrating through his bones, and the lights flickered again, faster this time, strobing like a dying bulb. He yanked the door open and bolted into the hall, slamming it shut behind him. Downstairs. He had to get downstairs. Out of the house. Anywhere but here. He stumbled down the steps, phone still clutched in his hand, the black screen reflecting his panicked face. At the bottom, he paused, panting, and dared to tap the app again. The stream was back online, the feed now showing the bedroom door, closed, still, silent. Then it creaked open, just an inch, revealing nothing but darkness beyond. Chapter 6. The Darkness. Creeps Ethan stood at the bottom of the stairs, his chest heaving as he stared at the phone screen. The bedroom door in the feed hung ajar, a thin sliver of black spilling into the hallway beyond. No light, no movement, just an empty void where his room should be. His hands shook so badly he nearly dropped the phone, but he couldn't look. Away. "This isn't real," he whispered, voice barely audible over the hum that still pulsed through the house. "It's a glitch. A hack. Something." He glanced up at the real stairwell, expecting to see the same open door, but it was closed tight, the light from his bedroom still seeping under the crack. The mismatch made his head spin. "Okay, Stream Squad," he said, forcing his tone to steady as he held the phone up like a shield. "I'm downstairs now. Doors shut up there. Whatever's on the feed, it's not happening here. Right?" The chat didn't respond. The app showed the stream as live, hundreds of viewers still watching, but the messages had stopped scrolling, frozen on the last desperate pleas from minutes ago. "Run! It's behind you! Ethan, get out!" He refreshed the app, hoping it was just a lag, but the screen flickered and stayed the same. Then the feed moved. The camera angle shifted, slowly panning upward from the floor to the open door. It wasn't his webcam. Couldn't be, since he'd stuffed it in a drawer. But the view was unmistakably his room. The hum spiked, a guttural drone that rattled. The windows and the shadow appeared in the doorway. It didn't step out. It just stood there, filling the frame, its edges sharp now. Too sharp, like it had been carved from the darkness itself. Ethan's knees buckled. He grabbed the banister to steady himself, his voice rising in panic. "Chat, tell me you're seeing this. What is that thing?" No response. The shadow tilted its head, a slow, deliberate motion, and the feed cut to static, then black. Silence. The hum stopped, the lights steadied, and the house felt normal again. Ethan exhaled, a shaky laugh bubbling up. Okay, it's over. Whatever that was, it's done. I'm calling it a night, Stream Squad. No more spooky stuff, lesson learned. He tapped the phone to end the stream again, and this time, it worked. The app closed, leaving him staring at his home screen. But the relief didn't last. A faint creak echoed from upstairs, the sound of a door shifting on its hinges. He froze, eyes darting to the top of the stairs. The bedroom door was still closed, but the light beneath it flickered, dimming for a split second before flaring back. "No," he muttered, backing toward the front door. "Nope, I'm out. I'm done." He fumbled with the lock, his fingers clumsy with adrenaline, and yanked the door open. Cold night air rushed in, grounding him for a moment. He stepped onto the porch, slamming the door behind him, and took a deep breath. The street was quiet, streetlights buzzing, a distant dog barking, but it was real, solid, safe. He lifted his phone again, debating whether to call someone, a friend, his brother, the police. "Hey, 911? Yeah, my stream's haunted. Send help." He chuckled weakly at the thought, but the sound died in his throat when the phone vibrated. The stream app had reopened on its own. The feed was live again. Not from his bedroom this time, but from the living room, right where he'd been standing minutes ago. The couch, the TV, the curtains, all framed perfectly, as if a camera were perched on the coffee table. And there, in the corner of the screen, was the shadow. It wasn't still anymore. It moved, gliding across the room with an unnatural smoothness, heading for the front door. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He spun around, expecting to see it behind him, but the porch was empty. The feed, though, it showed the shadow, reaching the door, its blurry hand pressing against the glass. A low thud echoed from inside the house, matching the motion on screen. "Chat!" he shouted into the phone, voice cracking. "Tell me what to do. Where's it going?" The chat unfroze, messages spilling in so fast he could barely read them. "It's following you. Run, Ethan, run." The hum's back. We hear. "It." He didn't wait to listen. He bolted off the porch, sprinting down the driveway toward the street. The hum returned, faint at first, then louder, buzzing through the air like a swarm of invisible bees. He didn't look back, didn't dare, but the phone in his hand kept streaming, the feed now jostling with his every step, showing the front door swinging open behind him, the shadow stepping out into the night. Chapter 7. The street isn't. Safe Ethan's sneakers pounded the pavement, each step echoing in the quiet suburb. Streetlights cast long, jagged shadows across the road, and the cold air burned his lungs as he ran. The phone bounced in his grip, the stream still live, its glow the only thing keeping him tethered to his audience. "Stream squad," he panted, holding it up as he slowed to a jog. I'm outside. Whatever that was, it's back in the house, right? Tell me it's over." He stopped under a streetlight, doubling over to catch his breath, and glanced at the screen. The feed showed the front porch now, empty, the door ajar, swaying slightly in the breeze. No shadow, no hum, just his house, silent and still. The chat surged back to life. "Ethan, you're okay. It's gone. Did you see it leave? Check behind you." He straightened, spinning around instinctively. The street stretched out behind him, dark lawns, parked cars, a few porch lights glowing in the distance. Nothing moved. "See?" he said, forcing a grin for the camera. "All clear. You guys had me freaking out over nothing. Well, not nothing. That was wild. But I'm safe now, yeah?" The hum answered him. It started low, a vibration he felt more than heard, rippling up through the asphalt. His grin vanished. No, come on," he groaned, backing away from the house. The phone vibrated too, the feed flickering before steadying on a new angle. The street, his street, filmed from somewhere high, maybe a lamppost or a tree. And there, at the edge of the frame, was the shadow, standing motionless by his mailbox, Ethan's, breath caught. He looked up, scanning the real street. The mailbox was 20 feet away, bathed in the streetlight's glow, and empty. No figure, no shadow. But on the phone, it was there, staring straight at the camera, its head tilted just like before. "Chat, where is it?" he whispered, voice trembling. "I don't see it out here, but it's on the feed." "What's happening?" The responses were frantic. "It's right there! It's moving toward you! Ethan, run again! It's close!" He didn't wait to confirm. He turned and sprinted down the street, the hum growing louder, chasing him like a wave. The phone screen jostled, the feed cutting between angles. His house, the porch, the mailbox, each shot showing the shadow in a different spot, always closer, always watching. "This isn't real," he shouted, half to himself, half to his viewers. "It's a trick. Somebody's doing this." He veered into a neighbor's yard, ducking behind a hedge to catch his breath. The hum softened, muffled by the rustling leaves, and he peeked at the phone again. The feed had stabilized, now showing the street from where he'd just been. The lamppost glowing, the pavement shimmering faintly with frost. The shadow stood beneath the light, its form clearer than ever. Tall, thin, with limbs that seemed too long, too bent. It didn't move, just faced the camera. Or him. Its head cocked at an unnatural angle. Ethan's stomach twisted. "Okay, Stream Squad," he whispered, crouching lower. "I'm hiding. It can't see me here, right? Tell me what it's doing." The chat scrolled fast. "It's still there." "It's turning! Ethan, it's walking your way." He risked a glance over the hedge. The street was empty. No shadow, no movement, just the hum vibrating through the air. But the feed showed otherwise. The shadow stepping off the curb, gliding toward the yard with that same eerie smoothness. A twig snapped behind him, and he whirled around, nothing but bushes and darkness. "Chat, I don't hear it out here," he said, voice barely audible. "Is it still on the feed?" The answers came fast. "Yes, it's right behind you. Run now." He bolted again, crashing through the yard, the hum swelling until it felt like it was inside his skull. The phone slipped from his hand, hitting the grass with a dull thud, but the stream kept going, showing him running, the shadow closing in, its long fingers stretching toward the screen as the feed cut to black. Chapter 8. The Phone Won't Let Go. Ethan scrambled to his feet, his breath ragged as he scanned the dark yard for his phone. The grass was damp, glistening under the faint moonlight. And there it was, face up, the screen glowing like a beacon in the shadows. He lunged for it, snatching it off the ground, and nearly dropped it again when he saw the feed. It wasn't black anymore. It showed him, right now, standing in the yard, clutching the phone, his wide eyes reflecting the screen's light. Behind him, the shadow loomed, its long, distorted arm reaching out, fingers brushing the air inches from his shoulder. "No," he yelped, spinning around. The yard was empty, just bushes, a wooden fence, and the distant hum of the street. But the feed didn't lie. The shadow was there, frozen in that reaching pose, its head tilted as if studying him. "Chat, what is this?" he croaked, holding the phone up to his face. "I don't see it out here. Tell me what's happening." The chat surged back, messages overlapping in a frantic blur. "Ethan, it's right there. It's not moving. Run." The hums louder. "We hear it." He stumbled backward, tripping over a garden hose, and landed hard on the grass. The phone bounced from his hand, skidding a few feet away. The hum swelled, a deep, bone-rattling buzz that made his teeth ache, and he crawled toward the device, desperate to stay connected to his viewers. "Stream Squad, don't leave me," he muttered, grabbing it again. The feed hadn't changed. He was still there, sprawled on the ground, the shadow towering over him. But now its hand was closer, its fingers curling like it could grab him through. The screen. Okay, I'm out of here," he said, scrambling up and bolting toward the fence. He vaulted over it, landing awkwardly in the next yard, and kept running, the phone clutched tight. The hum followed, a relentless pulse that seemed to seep from the ground itself. He didn't dare look back, didn't dare stop. But the feed kept streaming, showing the shadow gliding after him, silent, smooth, unstoppable. He burst onto a side street, his sneakers slapping the pavement as he gasped for air. "Chat, where am I going?" he panted, holding the phone up. "I need a plan. Tell me what to do." The responses came fast. Find a crowd. Go to a neighbor's house. Turn off the phone. Turn it off. He slowed, glancing at the screen. The shadow was still there, now at the edge of the yard he'd just left, its form sharper than ever. Tall, thin, with a face that wasn't a face, just a blank, dark void. "Yeah, good idea," he muttered, fumbling with the power button. He held it down, waiting for the shutdown screen. but nothing happened. The stream stayed live. The hum grew louder, and the shadow took a step closer on the feed. "Come on," he shouted, smacking the phone against his palm. The screen flickered, but the app refused to close. The feed locked on that impossible view. "Fine, I'll ditch it." He reared back to throw it into the street, but stopped short. The chat. It was his lifeline, his only way to know what was happening. "Stream Squad, I can't lose you guys. Tell me this is a prank. Tell me someone's messing with me." The chat didn't comfort him. "It's not a prank. It's following the phone. Ethan, it's speeding up." He looked at the feed again. The shadow was moving faster now, gliding down the side street with an eerie grace, its long limbs bending in ways that made his stomach lurch. "No, no, no," he whispered, breaking into a run again. The hum matched his pace, vibrating through the air, the ground, his bones. He turned a corner, heading for the main road. Cars, lights, people, anything to break this nightmare. But the phone vibrated harder, the screen flashing white before settling on a new angle. The street ahead, filmed from above, like a drone, was tracking him. He was there, running, his hoodie flapping behind him, and the shadow was there too, closing the gap, its fingers stretching longer, reaching for the back of his neck. Ethan screamed, a raw, panicked sound that echoed down the empty road. He threw the phone as hard as he could, watching it sail through the air and smash against the asphalt. The screen cracked, the glow dimming, and for a moment the hum stopped. He kept running, lungs burning, until he reached the main road. A gas station glowing in the distance, cars humming past. He collapsed against a street sign, gasping, and risked a look back. The phone lay in the street, its light flickering faintly. The shadow wasn't there. Not in the real world, at least. "It's over," he wheezed, wiping sweat from his face. "It's finally over." But then he heard it. A faint buzz, rising from the wreckage of his phone. Chapter 9. The signal persists. Ethan stared at the broken phone, its cracked screen pulsing with a weak, sickly light. The buzz wasn't loud, not yet. But it was there, threading through the night air like a whisper he couldn't shake. He backed away, his sneakers scraping the pavement, until he bumped into the gas station's curb. The neon sign above buzzed too, mimicking the sound, and for a wild moment, he wondered if it was all in his head. "No," he muttered, shaking himself. "I'm done. It's broken, it's gone." He turned toward the gas station, its windows glowing with the promise of safety, people, normalcy, an end to this madness. He staggered inside, the bell above the door jingling as he stepped into the fluorescent light. A bored cashier glanced up from his phone, raising an eyebrow. "You okay, man?" the guy asked, popping a piece of gum. Ethan forced a nod, his voice hoarse. "Yeah, just rough night. Can I use your phone? Mine's, dead." The cashier shrugged, sliding a corded phone across the counter. "Knock yourself out." Ethan dialed, his brother's number, his fingers trembling as he pressed the keys. The line rang once, twice, then clicked to voicemail. "Hey, Jake, it's me," he said, keeping his voice low. "I need you to come get me. I'm at the gas station on Maple. Something weird's going on. Call me back." He hung up, exhaling shakily, and leaned against the counter. "Thanks," he muttered to the cashier, who just grunted and went back to scrolling. For a moment, he felt safe. The hum was gone, the shadow nowhere in sight. Maybe it really was over. Maybe smashing the phone had broken whatever connection it had to. Whatever that thing was. He glanced out the window, half expecting to see it standing under the pumps. But the lot was empty, just a flickering streetlight and his shattered phone lying in the road. Then the cashier's phone buzzed. Not a notification, a low, steady vibration that made Ethan's skin crawl, The guy frowned, picking it up. Weird, he muttered, tapping the screen. App just opened by itself. Ethan's stomach dropped. What app? He asked, voice barely a whisper. Dunno, some streaming thing. Look. The cashier turned the phone toward him, and there it was. The familiar interface of Ethan's stream, live and running. The feed showed the gas station counter, filmed from above, as if the security camera had hijacked the broadcast. Ethan was there, pale and wide-eyed, leaning against the counter. And behind him, just out of focus, was the shadow. Taller, clearer, its blank face tilted toward the screen. No! Ethan shouted, shoving the phone away. It clattered to the counter, but the feed stayed live, the hum leaking from the tiny speaker. The cashier jumped back, startled. What the hell, man? He snapped. What's that? I don't know. Ethan yelled, backing toward the door. It's following me. It won't stop. He glanced at the screen again. The shadow was moving now, stepping closer to the on-screen Ethan, its long fingers brushing the air. The real Ethan spun around, expecting to see it. But the store was empty. Just him and the cashier, who was staring like he'd lost his mind. Dude, chill, the cashier said, reaching for the phone. It's just a glitch or... The lights flickered. The hum surged, loud and guttural, shaking the shelves. The cashier froze, his hand hovering over the device as the feed cut to static, then black. For a heartbeat, silence. Then the bell jingled, and Ethan bolted outside, not waiting to see what came next. He ran across the lot, the hum chasing him, louder now, vibrating through the pumps and the pavement. The cashier's phone wasn't the only one. Car radios crackled as he passed. Screens in the store window flickered, all syncing to that same relentless buzz. He didn't stop, didn't look back, just kept running toward the highway, praying the signal would die out. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't. The story's reaching a fever pitch now. I'll keep the momentum going, ensuring each chapter stays over 3,000 characters and the total nears 40,000, while maintaining the YouTube-friendly tone. Here's the next installment of It's Not a Lag, It's Here. It's Not a Lag, It's Here. Chapter 10. The Highway. Ethan's legs burned as he sprinted toward the highway, the gas station's lights fading behind him. The hum was everywhere now, a deep thrumming pulse that rattled the air, the ground, his skull. Car headlights streaked past, their horns blaring as he stumbled into the road, waving his arms. Stop! Somebody stop! He shouted, voice raw and desperate. A pickup truck swerved, tires screeching, and slowed to a halt a few feet away. The driver, a middle-aged guy with a scruffy beard, leaned out the window. You nuts, kid? What's wrong with you? Please, Ethan gasped, clutching the truck's door. I need a ride, anywhere, just away from here. Something's after me. The guy frowned, glancing at the empty road behind Ethan. After you? Looks clear to me. You drunk or something? No, I'm not. Listen, please, just drive. Ethan begged, climbing into the passenger seat before the driver could argue. The man muttered something under his breath but shifted into gear, pulling back onto the highway. The truck's engine roared, drowning out the hum for a moment, and Ethan slumped against the seat, chest heaving. You're a mess, kid, the driver said, eyeing him sidelong. What's chasing you? Cops? Ex-girlfriend? Ethan shook his head, wiping sweat from his brow. It's hard to explain. You wouldn't believe me. Just keep going, okay? Far as you can. He fumbled in his pocket, realizing his phone was gone, smashed back on the street. No stream, no chat, no lifeline. For the first time in hours, he felt a flicker of relief. It's over, he whispered to himself. No signal, no shadow. The cell. Driver grunted, turning up the radio to fill the silence. Static crackled through the speakers, then a faint voice, a DJ droning about late-night traffic. Ethan exhaled, letting the sound wash over him until the static spiked. The radio cut out, replaced by that familiar buzz, low and insistent. His eyes widened. No, turn it off. What? The driver frowned, reaching for the knob. It's just interference. The dashboard screen flickered to life, an old GPS unit Ethan hadn't noticed before. The map vanished, replaced by a live feed. The truck's interior, filmed from somewhere above the windshield. There was Ethan, hunched in the passenger seat, pale and trembling. And behind him, in the back of the cab, sat the shadow. Its long, bent limbs folded unnaturally, its blank face tilted toward the camera. Ethan screamed, twisting in his seat. The back was empty, just a pile of blankets and a cooler. But the feed showed the shadow leaning closer, its fingers stretching toward his neck. "It's here!" he shouted, clawing at the door handle. "Stop the truck! Let me out!" "Whoa! Calm down!" the driver yelled, swerving as Ethan yanked the door open. The truck skidded to the shoulder, gravel crunching under the tires, and Ethan tumbled out, hitting the ground hard. The driver cursed, leaning out. "You're crazy, kid. What's your problem?" Ethan didn't answer. He scrambled up, running along the highway's edge, the hum swelling behind him. The truck's radio blared, the buzz leaking out into the night, and the dashboard screen flickered wildly, showing the shadow climbing into the front seat, right where Ethan had been. The driver stared at it, mouth agape, then slammed the gas, peeling away in a cloud of dust. Ethan kept running, the highway stretching endlessly ahead. Cars honked, headlights blinding him, but he didn't stop. The hum was relentless, seeping from every direction, road signs buzzing, a distant billboard flickering, even his own pulse seeming to sync with it. "Stream Squad," he gasped, though he had no phone, no audience. "If you're still there, tell me how to stop this." A semi-truck roared past, its trailer rattling, and its radio crackled as it went. Ethan's own voice echoing back, distorted and panicked. "Tell me how to stop this!" He froze, staring after it. The shadow wasn't just following him. It was spreading, hijacking every signal, every screen, every sound. He stumbled off the road, collapsing into the grass beside a ditch. The hum softened, muffled by the earth, and he lay there, panting, staring at the sky. Stars blinked above, cold and distant, and for a moment, it was quiet. No screens, no tech, just him and the night. Then his pocket buzzed. He jolted, patting himself down. His smartwatch, forgotten until now, lit up, its tiny screen glowing with the stream app. The feed showed him lying in the grass, the camera angle impossibly high like it was filmed from the stars themselves. And there, at the edge of the frame, the shadow stood, its long fingers brushing the grass beside his head. Ethan tore the "watch off," hurling it into the ditch and ran again, the hum rising like a tide he couldn't escape. Chapter 11. The Signal. Spreads Ethan's lungs screamed as he pushed through the tall grass, the highway's roar fading behind him. The ditch stretched into a field, dark and endless, dotted with skeletal trees clawing at the sky. He didn't know where he was going. Away, just away, as far from the hum as his legs could carry him. The watch was gone. The phone was gone. Every piece of tech stripped away. "It's over now," he panted, slowing to a stumble. "No more screens. It can't find me." The wind rustled the grass, a cold whisper against his skin, and he stopped, doubling over to catch his breath. The hum was faint now, a distant buzz he could almost ignore. He straightened, scanning the field. No lights, no shadows, just the vast, empty night. "Okay," he said aloud, voice trembling but firm. "I'm done running. Whatever you are, you're not getting me out here." A twig snapped. He spun, heart hammering, but it was just a deer darting through the bushes, its eyes glinting in the moonlight. He laughed, a shaky, desperate sound, and sank to his knees. See? Nothing. Just me and the deer. Stream Squad, you'd laugh at me now, freaking out over Bambi. But the hum didn't laugh. It grew louder, sharper, cutting through the wind like a knife. Ethan's stomach twisted as he stood, searching for the source. The field was still empty, the trees still bare. But then he saw it. A faint glow, pulsing, in the distance. A cell tower, its red light blinking steadily, stood at the edge of the horizon. The hum synced with it, each pulse matching the tower's rhythm. No, he whispered, backing away. No more signals. I'm done. He turned to run, but the ground beneath him vibrated, a low rumble that shook the dirt. He tripped, catching himself on a tree, and froze as the hum spiked, a deafening roar that made his ears ring. Then the deer screamed. Not a natural sound, a distorted electronic screech, like a speaker blown out. Ethan whipped around, and there it was, standing in the grass. The deer, its head twitching unnaturally, its eyes glowing with the same sickly light as his phone screen. The shadow wasn't in it. It was it, its form flickering between fur and darkness, a glitch made flesh. Ethan bolted, crashing through the field, branches tearing at his hoodie. The hum chased him, the deer's screeches echoing behind, joined by others, birds, crickets, frogs, all warping into that same electronic wail. The tower's light blinked faster, the hum pulsing in time, and he realized it wasn't just following him. It was spreading, infecting everything it touched. He burst out of the field onto a dirt road, his shoes kicking up dust as he ran. Farmhouse loomed ahead, its windows dark, a faint TV glow flickering through the curtains. "Help!" he shouted, pounding on the door. "Somebody, please!" The door creaked open, revealing an old woman in a nightgown, her face creased with confusion. "What's all this noise?" she snapped, peering at him. "Something's after me," Ethan stammered, pushing past her. "I need to hide. Please, no phones, no TVs, nothing," she huffed, closing the door. "No phones? What's wrong with you, boy? You on something?" "No, He stopped, staring at the TV in the corner. It was on, showing static, but his voice crackled through the speakers. No phones, no TVs, nothing. The screen flickered, and the feed appeared. Him, standing in the farmhouse, the old woman behind him, and outside the window, the shadow loomed, its long fingers pressed against the glass. The woman gasped, clutching her chest. "What in God's name? Turn it off!" Ethan yelled, lunging for the plug. He yanked it from the wall, but the screen stayed lit, the hum pouring from it. The shadow on the feed stepped closer, its blank face filling the frame, and the glass behind him rattled with a low, deliberate thud. Ethan grabbed the woman's arm, pulling her toward the door. "We have to go, now!" The hum swelled, the lights flickered, and the shadow's fingers curled through the screen, reaching into the room as the feed cut to black. Chapter 12. The signal takes. Over Ethan dragged the old woman out of the farmhouse, her protests drowned by the hum that shook the walls. The TV screen, unplugged yet glowing, pulsed with static as they stumbled onto the porch. The shadow's fingers had vanished from the feed, but the glass window rattled harder, cracks spiderwebbing across it. "Keep moving," Ethan shouted, pulling her down the steps into the yard. The night air was thick, the hum vibrating through the dirt, the trees, the sky itself. "What's happening?" the woman cried, clutching her nightgown. "What is that thing?" "I don't know," Ethan yelled, glancing back. The farmhouse's lights flickered wildly, the TV's glow seeping through the curtains like a beacon. "It's following me, through screens, signals, everything." He scanned the yard for an escape, a barn, a car, anything. But the hum spiked, and the porch light exploded in a shower of sparks. The woman shrieked, stumbling, and Ethan caught her arm, hauling her toward the dirt road. The cell tower in the distance blinked faster, its red light a frantic pulse that synced with the chaos. The hum wasn't just sound anymore. It was a force, bending the air, warping reality. The farmhouse door slammed open behind them, and Ethan risked a look. The TV screen had expanded, its edges melting into the frame, spilling static into the room like liquid light. And there, stepping out of the glow, was the shadow. Tall, sharp, its blank face tilting toward them. Go, go. Ethan pushed the woman. Forward, his voice hoarse. The shadow didn't run. It glided, its long limbs stretching unnaturally as it crossed the porch. The ground trembled, the hum roaring in his ears, and the woman tripped, falling to her knees. Ethan yanked her up, but she was shaking too hard to move fast. We can't stop, please! The road stretched ahead, leading to a cluster of houses, lights, people, safety. But as they staggered forward, those lights flickered too, windows glowing with static, car radios crackling to life. The shadow wasn't just behind them, it was everywhere, leaping from screen to screen, signal to signal. A neighbor's porch TV flared on, showing the feed. Ethan and the woman running, the shadow closing in, its fingers brushing the edge of the frame. It's spreading! Ethan gasped, his legs buckling. The woman sobbed, clutching his arm, and he pulled her toward a shed at the road's edge. In here, maybe it can't... He shoved the door open, dragging her inside and slamming it shut. The shed was dark, cramped, filled with rusty tools and cobwebs. No tech, no screens. The hum dulled, muffled by the wooden walls, and for a moment he dared to hope. Stay quiet, he whispered, pressing his back to the door. The woman nodded, her breathing ragged, and they listened. The hum pulsed outside, steady but distant, like a predator circling. Ethan's heart pounded, his mind racing. Stream squad, he muttered, though no one could hear. If you're still out there, tell me it's stopped. A faint thud broke the silence, then another, closer. The woman whimpered, and Ethan clapped a hand over her mouth, his eyes locked on the door. The hum grew sharper, threading through the cracks in the wood, and the shed's single window rattled. He turned, dreading what he'd see, but it was just glass, dark, empty, reflecting his own terrified face. Then the reflection shifted. The shadow stood behind him, not outside, but inside, its blank face inches from his own. He spun, shoving the woman aside, but the shed was empty. No shadow, no figure. The reflection lied, taunting him. No, he shouted, slamming his fist against the glass. It cracked, and the hum surged, pouring in like a flood. The door rattled, the walls groaned, and the woman screamed as the shed's roof creaked, bending inward. The shadow wasn't just following. It was consuming, seeping through every signal, every surface, every space. Ethan grabbed a shovel, wielding it like a weapon, and faced the door. Come on then, he yelled, voice breaking. You want me? Take me. The door burst open, and the hum swallowed everything. Chapter 13. The broadcast returns darkness. Silence. Ethan blinked, his head throbbing, the shovel still clenched in his hands. The shed was gone, or he was gone from it. He stood in a void, an endless black expanse with no walls, no ground, just a faint shimmer beneath his feet. The hum was there, soft now, a whisper in the air, and he spun, searching for the woman, the shadow, anything. Hello? He called, his voice echoing into nothing. A flicker caught his eye, a screen floating in the distance, glowing with the familiar stream interface. He staggered toward it, dread pooling in his chest. The feed showed the shed, its door hanging. Off its hinges, the old woman curled in a corner, sobbing. But Ethan wasn't there, not in the frame. The chat scrolled fast, alive again. "Ethan, where are you? The shadow took him." "We hear the hum. It's loud. I'm here," he shouted, reaching for the screen, but his hand passed through it, the image rippling like water. The feed shifted, showing the farmhouse, the highway, the gas station, all flickering past, a montage of his night. And in every frame, the shadow stood, its blank face watching, its fingers stretching toward the camera. The hum grew, vibrating through the void, and more screens appeared, dozens, hundreds surrounding him in a kaleidoscope of light. Each showed the stream, his stream, broadcasting to the world. The chat exploded, messages overlapping. "Ethan, it's everywhere. The shadow's on my TV. It's in my phone. Help!" He stumbled back, the shovel slipping from his grip. "No," he whispered, realization crashing over him. "It's not just me. It's all of you." The shadow wasn't chasing him anymore. It was using him, his signal to spread. Every viewer, every device, every connection was a door it could step through. A screen flared brighter, and the shadow emerged, not on the feed, but here, in the void with him. It towered over him, its form solid now, its blank face tilting as if curious. Ethan froze, unable to run, unable to scream. The hum pulsed in his chest, syncing with his heartbeat, and the shadow reached out, its long fingers brushing his shoulder. Not cold, not warm, just there. "Stream Squad," he croaked, staring into the void of its face. "If you're still watching, I'm sorry." The shadow's hand tightened, and the screens multiplied, filling the darkness with his own image. Pale, trembling, trapped. The chat screamed back. "Ethan, fight it! Don't give up! We see you! We see you!" The shadow tilted its head again, and the hum became words, not spoken, but felt, vibrating through him. They see, they hear, they call. Ethan's knees buckled, but he didn't fall. The shadow held him, its grip unyielding. The screens pulsed, the feed cutting between his viewers' homes, living rooms, bedrooms, cars, all flickering with static, all showing the shadow stepping closer. He clawed at its arm, desperation surging. "Let me go!" he yelled, voice echoing across the void. The shadow didn't flinch. It leaned in, its blank face inches from his, and the screens flared white, the hum drowning out everything, his thoughts, his fear, his name. When the light faded, Ethan was back at his desk. The neon lights glowed, the camera blinked green, and the stream was live. He smiled, his voice calm, too calm. "Hey, Stream Squad. Sorry about the glitch earlier. We're back now, better than ever. Let's keep the vibes going, yeah." The chat erupted with relief, emojis flooding the screen. "Ethan, you're okay. What happened?" "Love the energy." He leaned closer to the camera, his grin widening. "Oh, it's nothing. Just a little lag. But don't worry. It's here now." Behind him, the shadow stood, its blank face tilted, its fingers resting on his shoulder. The hum purred softly, and the stream rolled on, unbroken, unstoppable.